Hello and welcome to Breakfast for Pancakes. I am your host, PK Sullivan. Today I'm going to take you through a very brief introductory guide on how to cook with a wok. The recipes I'm showing you today come from one of my favorite cookbooks, Breath of a Wok. I got this many years ago and it remains one of my all-time favorite cookbooks. Breath of a Wok isn't just a cookbook, it's not just a collection of recipes. It also provides context for how to cook with a wok, where wok cooking traditions come from, and is the author Grace Young's journey through her family history. A wonderful introduction to why cooking in a wok is different and unique. It's an exploration of Chinese cooking in a manner that I haven't seen elsewhere. It gives you a huge breadth of recipes that range from something that you would consider to be very traditional to things that are more worldly and multicultural in nature. The people that she interviewed and gathered recipes from are from all over the world, some in China, some in the Chinese diaspora across the world. And the recipes reflect that. You have recipes that use very traditional Chinese ingredients and recipes that have been adapted for living in another country. I chose these two recipes because they are going to show you how the wok achieves two very different ways of cooking. First, we're going to do a simple stir fry. The recipe in the book calls it Dixon He's Oyster Lo Mein. It doesn't use fresh oysters, it uses oyster sauce. Super simple, easy to make lo mein that is delicious and can be put together on a weeknight. The recipe says it serves 4 as part of a multi-course meal. I found it also does dinner for 2 with a little bit of extra for somebody to have a lunch the next day. The other recipe is steamed salmon with a lemon. To make that recipe, you're going to need some steamer baskets. I have these bamboo ones. I've had these for ages. They work great, but there are also metal ones if you want to go that route. Either way, get yourself some steamer baskets in order to make the salmon. I have not made that recipe before, so this is going to be me learning out loud as I try the recipe for the very first time. Before we get started cooking, I want to talk a little bit about what a wok is, how it's different, and how that will inform your methods of cooking. Simply put, a wok is a large pan. It has a deep bowl shape, almost like it's a sphere cut in half. And typically your wok is going to have very, very thin metal for its entire body. On its own, none of these features are good or bad, they just are. However, they do change how the food will cook, which means you need to adapt your cooking techniques to match the vessel. First up, that thin metal. There's going to be very little metal soaking up heat between the flame and the food. Your wok will get very, very hot very, very quickly, but it's also going to lose heat very, very quickly. The bowl shape means that when you add oil, it's mostly going to pool down at the bottom. You can coat the edges, but for the most part, the oil is going to concentrate at the bottom of your wok and just pool there. Compared to a skillet with a large flat surface, this means you're going to have a deeper pool of oil at the bottom of your wok than you will cooking with a cast iron skillet. What that means is you can deep fry things in very small amounts of oil. Since the cooking oil tends to concentrate at the bottom, you want to cook in small batches, even though this is a large pan. There are flat-bottomed woks out there. I personally don't like flat-bottomed woks because you lose that pooling effect of the oil at the base of the pan. I find it's really helpful to have that there when I am stir frying my vegetables or meat. Your wok will need to have a handle. I have a long handle on this one and a helper handle. I find both of them are very good and useful to have in my wok. A good wok should be carbon steel. It will season up, become non-stick, and the steel will act as a better conductor for heat while remaining lighter weight than something like cast iron. You want to avoid using any wok that has a non-stick coating. Teflon turns toxic at very high heats. When you're cooking on a wok, you are going to be cooking on high heats. Avoid woks with non-stick coatings, they're just not healthy. 2 accessories that I cannot recommend enough for cooking in a wok are a wok spatula and the steamer baskets. The wok spatula is a unique shape. It has sort of a shovel shape to it with a rounded front and sloped sides along the edges. This is great because the entire wok is curved. In my flat top griddle video, I mentioned that I want a spatula that has a thin, flat forward edge so that I get good contact with the griddle for scraping up food. Same principle applies here, except my cooking surface, the wok, is curved, so I want a curved spatula to match that. I get good consistent contact between the front of the spatula and the bowl of the wok all the way through the scoop. That is absolutely critical. You can usually get one of these for $5 or $6 when you buy your wok. Steamer baskets transform your wok from a stir fry and deep fry machine into a healthy steamer. Super simple to use. All you do is add water to the bottom of your wok, place your steamer basket in the wok over the water, and let the steam rise up through the food, thereby cooking it. This lets you cook very delicate foods in a very gentle manner. It also lets you cook without the use of oil. So if you're on a low-fat diet, steamer baskets are great. One thing to note is you don't want to submerge the steamer baskets in water. You just want them to sit above the water. You'll see that's why the edge of my steamer basket is blackened and charred, because it's been sitting on the metal while the burner is on. That metal heats up and has blackened and hardened the edges of my steamer basket. There are other kinds of steamer baskets. These are bamboo ones. They are, again, pretty easy and cheap to get. I'll try to put some links down below. Oyster Lo Mein. Salt, fresh noodles, oyster sauce, soy sauce, sesame oil, sugar, vegetable oil, garlic, scallion, carrot. Start by chopping the vegetables. The garlic will be stir-fried, the scallion and carrot will be mixed in after cooking. Stir-frying is a very high heat process. To keep the garlic from burning, mince it the slow way rather than grating it on a microplane. Mincing it isn't hard, it just takes a little time and is precise work. Cut a crosshatch through the clove and then mince off the bits. Rock chop your knife over any large bits that fall off. Scoop it up and set it aside in a bowl. The recipe calls for shredded scallion. I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm doing this right. No one ever taught me how to shred a green onion. But I think this is pretty close to how it should go. Trim the ends of your scallion and slice it in two lengthwise. Then slice it at an extreme bias so you end up with long, thin pieces that more or less look like they've been shredded. Move it to a bowl and onto the carrot. To julienne a carrot is pretty straightforward. Peel it, trim the ends, and cut the carrot into chunks that are shorter than your knife. Square those off to start. This gives you a box shape. Slice that into planks. Stack the planks and slice them into strips. These should only be a couple millimeters to a side, like matchsticks. Drop them in a bowl and set off to the side. We're going to start our stir fry by boiling some water. Bring a full pot of water up to a good boil. Add the salt and the noodles. Cook until al dente. These fresh noodles only need a minute, but if you're working with dried pasta, follow the directions on the package. When the noodles are done, pour out the water and set the dirty pot back on the stove. Don't wash it yet. Rinse the noodles with cold water to both stop the cooking and remove excess starch. If you wanted to dunk and swirl them in a bath of water, that would be good. I don't have the space for that while filming. With your noodles rinsed, go ahead and add the oyster sauce, soy sauce, sesame oil, and sugar to the pot. Whisk that all together briefly to combine the ingredients. The sauce will pick up some starch left over from the noodles. That starch will help thicken the sauce once it's heated. Dump your noodles into the pot and toss to combine with the sauce. Move the pot aside and get your wok over high heat. It's time to stir fry. There's a lot of talk about how a traditional round bottom wok doesn't work on Western stoves, and that's probably true on electric. But I've never had a problem with a gas stove. Technique is more important than having a billion BTU. A flat bottom wok doesn't give you the well at the bottom of the pan that is so useful for stir frying. Go ahead and turn your burner on high heat and let the wok come up to searing temperature. One way to tell if your wok is good and hot is to add a drop of water. The water should immediately start to sizzle and completely evaporate in a second or two. My wok is good and hot, so I add the oil and swirl it around to coat the pan. The recipe calls for just 2 tablespoons of oil, but because of the shape of the wok, with that well at the bottom, it's more than enough for me to quickly deep fry the garlic. Cook it until nicely browned, maybe 30 seconds. Be sure to stir constantly. This is stir frying. It is an active process. Don't let the garlic stick to the pan where it will burn. Then drop the heat to medium and add the noodles. Quickly stir together to keep the garlic from sticking to the wok. Stir constantly until the noodles are heated through 2 to 3 minutes. Remove from the heat. Add your scallions and carrots, then toss to combine. Steamed salmon with lemon. Salmon, soy sauce, salt, white pepper, scallion, ginger, lemon, sesame oil. More vegetable prep. Take your chunk of ginger and cut 4 1/4-inch thick discs from it. No need to peel it, no one will be eating the actual ginger root, it's just there to add flavor to the dish. Trim the ends of your scallions and cut them into 4-inch long pieces. Cut the lemon in half. Get 4 slices off one half and juice the other. Stir together your soy sauce, salt, and white pepper. Steaming is a very different process from stir frying. Start with a clean wok. I just did a quick rinse on mine after the lo mein. Bring it up to heat over a high flame. Add water. For my wok and my steaming baskets, it's best to fill the wok about 1/3 of the way up. It works out to be around 1 liter of water. Adjust to fit your own equipment. Remember, you don't want to submerge the steamer basket. It's really easy to flood your steaming compartment and start boiling your food. That's bad. Once the water reaches a light boil, go ahead and add the steaming basket. This recipe makes a sauce in the steamer. To do that, we need to use a bowl or a plate to hold not only the fish, but all the liquids we're using for the sauce. This round plate fits nicely in my steamer basket. So, steamer basket in the wok, bowl or plate in the basket. Add the salmon fillet and pour your sauce over the top. Scatter the scallions and ginger around the bowl. Place your lemons directly on the fish. And lastly, pour the lemon juice over everything. Drop the cover on your steamer basket and set a timer for 8 minutes. Salmon is done when it just starts to flake when pressed with a fork or chopsticks. Remove the whole steamer basket from the wok. To serve the salmon, carefully remove the bowl from the basket. This was a tricky endeavor, and maybe a bowl would have been easier to work with as the sides would slope up and give me a better grip. Or maybe just leave it all in place and serve the steamer basket right on the table. That works too. Save the removal for when it's time to do the dishes. Anyway, once you're ready to serve the fish, remove those lemon slices. They've done everything they can, and pour the sesame oil across the top of the salmon. My plating wasn't the most elegant, but it's hard to argue with a salmon fillet and a side of noodles as a meal. On to the tasting. I love how well these two dishes work together. The sesame oil poured over the salmon gives it that unmistakable, rich, nutty flavor. It paired really well with the noodles, which also have sesame oil, but also have browned garlic to give it even more nutty umami flavor. The noodles are bouncy and stretchy, coated all over with the sauce and just filled with flavor. The carrots and scallion add textural contrast and bring their own flavors to the mix. Scallion has that nice vegetal allium bite, especially now in the waning days of winter. That was a nice contrast to the very earthy flavors otherwise going on. The carrots are a nice bit of sweetness. The salmon surprised me. It's cooked to medium, which is more than I usually aim for when searing fillets, but that means it flakes apart easily with chopsticks. Steaming the fish keeps it tender and juicy. But the real magic happens when you add some of the sauce from the bowl. The soy, lemon, and ginger are really nicely balanced. I couldn't really tell that the acid was lemon, it was just a beautifully balanced sauce that complemented the salmon and the noodles perfectly. Unfortunately, the scallions were overcooked and mushy. It would have been nice to eat some of those, but they weren't appetizing at all. I suppose they did their duty contributing flavor to the sauce. What I love about both of these dishes is the simplicity. They're straightforward, a handful of ingredients that complement one another, cooked simply and quickly. The end result is a pair of dishes that would be at home in an upscale Chinese restaurant, or you can serve it at home in order to impress dinner guests. Even better, this is all beginner friendly. The techniques are simple. The ingredients are easy to find. As long as you've got a wok and a steamer basket, you're good to go. So, like I said, I've made the noodles as a standalone meal in the past. One change that I make to the recipe is I like to add some mushrooms into the stir fry, just so that we have a bit of protein and it's a more complete, balanced meal. Another thing that you can do is add some sesame seeds on top. There is sesame oil in there, so the fresh sesame flavor combined with the toasted flavor of the sesame oil actually is pretty nice. I'm definitely going to be making both of these dishes before. The noodles are a quick, easy weeknight preparation. The salmon also pretty easy, straightforward, can be done on a weeknight and delicious. I actually think you could do this with different kinds of fish too, not just salmon. If you wanted to do a whitefish with tilapia or some cod fillets, I don't see why not. Give it a shot. It probably would work out just fine. Whitefish do absorb flavors more, so the lemon and the ginger and the scallion will probably seep into a whitefish even more than it did with the salmon. Unless you're getting a nice thick cut of cod, you will definitely want to reduce that cooking time. Otherwise, you're just going to overcook it to death. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could like and subscribe, that would really help me out. And if you want to help me out monetarily, you can follow the link down in the show notes to join my Patreon. Patrons of $10 a month and higher get to vote on a video that will be featured in the following month. The patron selected video for the month of March 2022 is this one right here, the basics of cooking in a wok. I will definitely be doing more wok videos in the future, so stay tuned.